Hello again. So I've been working on sculpting my lady's face a little bit more. It still needs some further development in, a few areas of the face, and of course she needs hair and all those things. But I decided that I didn't want to go any further until I got her mounted into the sculpture. That way I can really make sure that she looks right with the rest of the piece. I wanted to get started on her kind of separate from the rest of the sculpture, just so that I could get that fine detail without having to work around her arms as much. But I think at this point it's time to get her mounted, or it will be soon. What I need to do first actually is build her hands, and because this whole setup, her hands are going to be back here and then her head is going to be here, kind of like here. And so the whole setup needs to work together. So I'm going to set her face aside for a little bit. I'm going to build her hands. I've done a little bit of experimentation, which has not worked out well. Story of my life. So I had this idea that maybe I could build hands by like pouring cement into a glove, and then I curved it around like a cardboard tube so that it would kind of have that natural hand shape. And then I was going to leave the glove on and do the epoxy around it. So basically use this as like a mold. But basically the cement, it just like expanded too much in the fingers of the gloves, and she would end up having like some really fat fingers if I did that. So I'm not going to do that. I'll probably save these and turn them into yard art or something fun like that. What I used to do when I used to sculpt with cement is I used to build like a wire framework, essentially, framework for each finger, and then put lath around them and then sculpt them in cement, which worked out pretty well. That also resulted in some kind of fat fingers, but now that I'm building with the epoxy, I think I'm going to go a similar direction. I'm going to do the wire armature, and then I'm going to wrap it with probably window screen and not lath, because that lath is just a little too thick for the delicate fingers. So I'm going to do the wire armature, weld that up, wrap it in window screen, and then sculpt it in epoxy. And I think that's going to work out a lot better. Actually, this is a great way to use up like little teeny tiny pieces. So a lot of times when I'm sculpting, I'll just need to like trim off a little tiny piece of my wire framework. And I save these, I save almost all the waste from my art, and a lot of it ends up not being waste. A lot of it you can use for something else, like I've talked about with, putting extra foam into the sculpture, or, all kinds of stuff you can just reuse. And the key is to be organized with it, because you can get like so much crap going on everywhere if you don't have a system and have it organized. So sometime I'll give you like a tour of my studio and show you how I have it all organized. But yeah, I'm going to be able to use all these little tiny pieces as, the different joints of the finger. Like that's probably about the right length for that, and I'm just going to be using my own hand as measurement. So, I'm going to weld and then measure against my hand. So obviously I'm not going to want to put that hot metal right on my hand right after I weld it. So what I'm going to do is quench it in water, just to cool it off. And it's something that you can do, if you don't want to wait for the metal to cool off. I think it does compromise the strength just a little bit. So if you were building like something that needs to be really strong, like super strong, you wouldn't want to do that. But I mean, the hands are kind of delicate little things, and they're going to be plenty strong even if I quench them in the water. So that's what's happening today. That's what I'm doing, and thanks for coming along on my artistic journey. So as you guys can see, I'm having way too much fun with this. But I finished sculpting my hand armatures. They both do fit pretty well on my hands. I used my hands as the model for that, like we talked about. There's the left hand and the right hand. Ta-da! Yeah, but So what's happening now is I'm gonna wrap the fingers in window screen and sculpt them with epoxy. I'm just gonna do the fingers for right now, and I'm gonna leave the metal down here exposed so that I can weld these up to the arms. You probably can't see in the video, but there is just a little piece of metal that's sticking out of the cardboard tube here that I can weld onto. And yeah, so it's gonna be easier to go ahead and have the fingers all done before I get them mounted. Let's get started. So here they are. Yeah, so I finished wrapping window screen around the hands. I apologize, it's kind of difficult to actually show the process in a time-lapse video. But yeah, basically I'm just using hot glue, wrapping the window screen around, cutting little sections of it, you know, and wrapping the fingers and hands with it. And I'm kind of using that window screen to add strength and bulk. So, you know, the wire is just like a little thin thing, you know, your fingers are going to be thicker than that. So I'm kind of just starting the sculpting process by, you know, adding some bulk with that window screen, and then, you know, we'll add a little bit more with the epoxy as well. Now, I've been working with that window screen for years, and literally just recently I've actually started wearing gloves when I work with it, because it literally took me like 3 years of getting stabbed with this window screen to actually decide to wear gloves. So don't be like me. If you're gonna do this, get yourself some gloves, wear them, because this window screen will stab you and it's not fun. And while I'm all for like suffering for your art, if that's what needs to happen, you know, let's minimize the suffering. Let's just do some art and have fun. Because when your art is stabbing you, it's not fun. So yeah, that's what's happening. I left, you know, like I talked about, I left this little metal part exposed so that we can weld to it. And now I'm going to go ahead and get some epoxy on it. The first layer is basically just about covering up the window screen and kind of anchoring it in place. And then I'll start to get like some more details and whatnot with the next layer after that. But yeah, that's what's going on today. Alright, so yesterday I finished up the first layer on my fingers. As you can see, they don't really have any detail yet like we talked about, and there's still a lot of window screen poking through them. So now that the first layer has cured, I'm going to go ahead and take my air tool with just a sanding disc on the end of it, and I'm going to go ahead and sand down any window screen that's sticking out. And you're definitely going to want to wear a respirator. You know, if you're ever grinding on anything that makes dust, really, you're going to want to wear a respirator, but especially for something like this, because it is a chemical and you don't want to breathe all that. Yeah, but I'm just going to go ahead and grind that down so that there's no window screen sticking out, and then I'm going to get the next layer on. And yeah, I'm really happy with how they're looking so far. I really like the knuckles, you know, they're really coming along. So yeah. So now you guys can see like how this is gonna go. I've got my second layer on the thumbs here. I decided to stop there because all the fingers are so close together that you know, once I get into like the really fine details of a piece, it's really better to just do a little bit at a time, because you know, you can end up trying to, you know, work in the details over here, and then you end up putting your thumb right in something that you just did over here. So for me, at least, it's better to just kind of do a little bit at a time, let it cure, and then come back and do the next part. You can see, you know, I've got the texture going on here. I've got like those little wrinkles that happen in your knuckles. We've got a thumbnail, and then we have the same going over on this piece. So yeah, so that's all I'm gonna do this week. I've got some errands to run later today. But yeah, I'm really happy with, you know, how it's gone so far, how these hands are looking. I think they're gonna be some of my strongest and most realistic hands that I've ever built. So I'm really excited. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Bye!